Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, Clayton, Stephanie, Ruby, Stephanie, and Jonathan. And for anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor or student. This broadcast for the last 1,105 days, on weekdays, so like 5/7 of 1,105. For a long time I've been broadcasting and usually have titles, and today there's 4, and the first one is practice your presentation, which I've talked about and you know about from previous broadcasts. So practice that, invest in that. It's not free, but it gives you a way of making money, which is what matters to me. Because if I can empower you to make money, sharing my point of view, it reinforces my point of view and benefits others. Number 2, the title is Make It About Money. And for whatever else you teach, whatever you do, make the presentation about money. Just as an exercise in offering value for value, and if someone doesn't want it for how you value it, that's fine. Don't make the presentation. But establish, but what did I say? Make it about money. Make it about money, even if it's a small, insignificant amount of money. Make it about getting paid to make a presentation. Because then, if people get bored of hearing what you have to say about CT and MMP, they might pay for something new just because you're presenting it. See? Number 3, when it comes to surviving as a Pilates instructor and figuring out how to place yourself and your understanding and experience of Pilates, how it fits in within the culture. It's more and more apparent that Pilates, as the mother of 10,000 points of view, has a broad spectrum of representation. Okay? So that's where I say, make it about the money. Accept the spectrum of what is associated to the word that you're connected to as well. But accept the spectrum, and in so doing, realize that you just exist in one small part of the spectrum, and there's a lot of the spectrum that could care less and aren't interested in your point of view from the part of the spectrum that you're in. Accept the spectrum in terms of where you are in it. And that all depends on how you put down the spectrum, right? But in terms of the spectrum of Pilates has an essence, to Pilates has no essence. Being aware of CT and MMP makes you or gives you a point of view about Pilates based on it having an essence of its own. And that's just coming from one part of the spectrum. Within which that's not the case. So accept in that way your place within the spectrum, and then what it's all about. Oh. Accept the spectrum in terms of what it's all about. So I'm always talking about Pilates and how to survive as a Pilates instructor. And so when I say accept the spectrum and what it's all about, well, what is Pilates all about? In one word, that's present tense continuous, surviving. Pilates is about surviving. It was designed by a survivor to help others survive. Now, insofar as you're surviving, you're still living. Right? And that's where Joe's title of his book comes so forcefully into play, because he didn't just call it contrology, he called it return to life through contrology. And so returning to life is returning to living. See how surviving and living are so synonymous in a way? Okay. And so when it comes to MMP and Joe's definition of contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit, right? The MMP interpretation of that is being, thinking, and observing. And observing is this capacity, I think, within life, and specifically within human beings, that you need in the pursuit of the choreography to get the benefits sought. And so within MMP, what matters to know about is that spirit is observing. And that's a capacity within a human being that's something other than thinking. Because it's body, mind, and spirit. It's one thing, this thing, and this thing. And in MMP, those three things all exist within the human being. Their being, their thinking, and their capacities in being, in thinking, and in observing. That's how I like to express what's going on as a Pilates instructor, trying to coordinate those three capacities. And so to survive as a Pilates instructor within the MMP point of view, you know that whatever else you're doing in content, you're aiming for the experience. And in knowing that, you know that the experience is a matter of coordinating a human being's being, thinking, and observing. And the slippery one there is observing. So number 4. In my closing, one of my sayings is add 2 and 2. It's come to have a lot to do with not just do things add up and that the world has a consistency to it mathematically, and that your survival as a Pilates instructor and being able to work the math of getting paid and paying your expenses and having something left over, more than enough left over, to do with as you will from the charity of your heart. But adding 2 and 2, the more I consider this and talk about it with friends, it seems obvious that what's on the web more and more is authored by somebody who's looking for compensation through a different number of ways. PayPal and Patreon and Bitcoin are the 3 that I have the way of collecting income from, and there are others that I don't recall offhand. But my point to you to survive as a Pilates instructor is to recognize, where all of this passion and money behind it is going to press Pilates into. And how do you add 2 and 2 in the midst of all of that monetary, in terms of income, competition from everywhere else? For one thing, recognizing that already now, services and money can be transferred in a lot of different ways directly to you, either as a direct payment for something or as a pledge for a monthly patron's support at different tiers. So in the future economy, I'm saying that having the ability to interact with someone on the web, say with video instruction and feedback, as I know one of my instructor friends does, they get paid up front by some avenue and then fulfill an appointment to have an interactive live instruction. That's my comment about add 2 and 2. And then as a summary, my poetic title is Find Innocent Ears. And it's what I think anyone likes to have, is a new student who isn't coming with whatever the impression is from wherever else they got it. Meaning they're completely new to Pilates. And that with it comes both an honor and a privilege and a terror of how significant that is, and how much a first impression can be. And how much I consider the foundation you're starting for so many others to build and add upon. But the foundation being what matters. Because of that, and because you want to survive as a Pilates instructor, I'd say learn more than just the normal or the traditional or the conventional way of looking at Pilates, through who worked with them and the lineages they created and the generations that have followed after. Tradition and word of mouth is the norm. That's what makes MMP transcendent, because it steps outside the norm, goes beyond the norm, and and establishes a theory that there's an ideal within Joe's original work based on 3 things in his book, in the case of MMP, and yet I'm sure others will follow with their points of view of Pilates that are untethered by or limited by a point of view that doesn't include where they're coming from or where you're coming from. So in being, here is the Pilates culture. Here is you saying or offering to make a presentation like going on a gondola ride and looking around. It's a presentation about 2 things, and it's this and that, and early on, it's easy to know if someone's interested in that or not. And then it's a matter of actually getting paid first in order to make the presentation. Because it's not about an evaluation of the presentation, it's about your willingness to do it. Think about it. If Aretha Franklin didn't sing, she didn't sing. And usually there was too much on the line in terms of bigger amounts of money. Not to add 2 and 2 for her the way she wanted to. So here, in what I call contemporary classical convention, see, I need something other than that. Because, here we go. In the world, there are all of these people. Like, it's an old child's mouth. But inside the world are all of these people, and some have heard about Pilates and some haven't. Some have heard about it and want to know it better, but, well, some people are looking to know more, regardless of what they know. And those are the ones you can offer a presentation to for 25 cents, for $1,000. For $1 million if it includes a stay on a private island for a week. Whatever your terms. I think because Pilates is about survival, that to ignore the surviving aspect of value exchange is to undermine your presentation of your value as a Pilates instructor. Enough said. Enough exposed to sound. So practice your presentation. Make it about money. Accept the spectrum. Add 2 and 2. And look for a new audience. Look for an audience that is new. And yet, that's the cool thing. Everyone wants completely innocent ears. But the great thing about CT and MMP is that you can make a presentation to very experienced ears. And they may be the ones most closed, but it will definitely be new to what they presume they already know. And some will embrace that, and some will find it as something not to embrace. Do your best. Oh man. Because life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Add two and two. Add two and two. Direct your thinking. Geist.